about
I will
your son.
speak and you will
Stop
listen, honey.
No, I
Don't you
won't.
ever,
You're wrong. Or what will
keep
you
my
do?
son's name
Or
in
what
your
will
mouth.
You
don't know what the you're talking about.
Clearly.
Don't you ever speak on my son.
Really?
One day he will
I
see
didn't
this,
say
and you will have to
about
pay
your
for that.
son.
You
There is
did.
a place in
You
hell for
did.
people like you.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's your girl, the Brooke Ashley, and today we are here to discuss The Real Housewives of Atlanta Season 15 Reunion Part 1. And before we get started, let me just say, it is so crazy to me that we had such an abysmal season, but yet this reunion actually gave us something. Because I'm not going to hold you guys, I was thoroughly entertained from beginning to end. Now, I do want to add that Shereé continues to seal the deal for me of why I dislike her so much. Because her attitude, the delusions, I don't know how you can try and talk about anybody else's businesses when meanwhile back at the ranch, She by Shereé is still flopping and hasn't even turned a profit. So the audacity and the gall for you to say anything about Kandi's businesses that are successful and still going and still open. I just said Shereé truly does not live on this planet because I just don't understand the logic. But let's be clear, it was apparent that everybody sitting on Shereé, Marlo, and Sonya's couch were all fighting for their spots for season 16. And by the way, Sonya, it's not a great look when Courtney is getting more screen time and talking more than you were this entire first part. But y'all, with all that being said, let's just jump right on into it because I have a lot to say and we don't have a minute to spare. Now, we know how the reunions go. Everybody's in New York getting all made up. I was confused when we saw Marlo in her dressing room and she's talking about all the girls always copy her. I said, baby, what are you talking about? I think that Marlo's another person who lives in her own world, and that's why her and Shereé get along so well. Because again, I want to know who's copying you. Now, I thought it was funny to see Andy out there meditating before they all came out. I said, now, Andy, you can meditate and pray and say affirmations all you want, but you already know how it goes down at a reunion, especially when it comes to Atlanta and Potomac. So I just said, there's no use trying to meditate because it's going to go left. Now, I'm not going to hold you guys. I didn't like anybody's look this year. I did not love the gowns. I thought that Drew's gown swallowed her. It wasn't flattering. Kenya's look, I just wasn't loving it. I think that any other time Kenya usually nails it, but I didn't love the hair. I wanted to see her beautiful hair out. It was a lot going on. Kandi's look was just okay to me. The bob was cute. I don't know. Like, I don't know what it was this year, but I just was not feeling any of their gowns. I wasn't. And I have to be so honest, y'all. I thought that Marlo's gown also swallowed her. It was shapeless. Like, I wasn't here for it. Shereé's gown was okay. Sonya's gown, it was simple, but it was nice. I definitely think that these were their worst looks to date because, again, Atlanta usually brings it when it comes to the fashions for the reunions. But anyhow, I digress. Now, we know how it goes. Andy starts talking to everybody, trying to break the ice. So he's like, Kandi, I'm happy to see you. I'm glad that you weren't too booked and busy to be here today. And then he talks to Sonya. We find out that Sonya's 4.5 months pregnant, and she's actually due on Christmas Day. Now, hearing about Sonya's miscarriage in the finale episode, my heart broke for her. So to see her happy, she's glowing, she's 4.5 months along, like, I am so happy for her because when I tell you, she had me sobbing in the last episode. But again, Sonya, I'm wishing you a very smooth pregnancy and a very smooth and happy and healthy delivery. So now Andy turns to Shereé and he's pointing out how refreshed she looks, and she admits to how she got her face refreshed, but on top of that, she does acknowledge that she got her nose tweaked again because she was having trouble breathing. Now, one thing about Shereé, she's gonna lie to the bitter end. because a few months ago, when everybody noticed that she got her face done, she was denying it, saying, no, it's just makeup. I haven't gotten anything done. And now all of a sudden at the reunion, you finally admit to the fact that you got your nose done again. Shereé, we're not stupid and we're not blind. I don't know why you couldn't be honest about this from jump. Nobody's judging you. Nobody cares. I'm all for plastic surgery. Like, I see nothing wrong with it. I think that it's a great thing. If you want to change something and tweak it, go ahead. Also, I'm not buying any of this about, well, I was having trouble breathing. Girl, just say that you wanted your nose done again. I just don't have time for the fluff and the BS. I'm not going to sit up here and try to qualify something because I'm low-key ashamed or embarrassed. No, I got my nose done because I wanted to. Period. End of story. Andy pointing out Marlo's weight loss, and Marlo's talking about, yeah, I'm trying to fit into sample sizes. And then when she said that she's doing what the other women are doing, taking the shots, I said, oh, so she's on Ozempic too. Well, I'm glad she's honest about it, but I just said for somebody who's gotten lipo 3 times, now you're on Ozempic, it's just like, girl. And now we see Andy asking Drew how she's feeling, what it's like with her still living in the same house with Ralph, and Drew says that it is very challenging. Now, we know that Ralph is good and crazy. The man is damn near a psychopath. So I'm not surprised to hear that it's very challenging being in the same house as him. I know Ralph is making her life a living hell. I wouldn't be surprised if he's being petty enough to bring other women back to the house because he's that disrespectful. So I already know that she is having a time being under the same roof with that man. And like I said, what's even sadder is the fact that women who are watching Ralph's craziness are probably still going to be lined up at the door ready to date him once this divorce is finalized. So now we started off with Miss Shereé. So they play her montage, and now Andy starts asking Shereé about this long-lost daughter of Bob's, and what's the story about that. So Shereé says that supposedly this girl had been coming around for quite some time, and they still never took a blood test. So they're going around saying that they're father and daughter, but there's no blood test to prove anything. Now listen, when that episode aired, that woman looked just like Bob, so I believe that that is his blood daughter. I mean, if I saw them out and about, I'd be like, oh yeah, that's definitely a father and daughter. That resemblance is strong, so I highly doubt that they're not related. So now Andy's asking, why didn't Cairo and Callie tell her? And Shereé says that they probably knew that she didn't care because this happened before they were married, and they're divorced now. Now, personally, I don't think that Shereé is being honest. I think that Shereé always knew about this secret daughter, but I feel like she probably turned a blind eye about it or didn't ask questions. I wouldn't be surprised if her and Bob sat up there and concocted this whole little plan to give her a storyline. Because let's be honest, what storyline has Shereé given us this season? I'll wait. And we know for a fact that this Bravo check is Shereé's lifeline. And if this check goes away, what will she have? So again, I don't put anything past anybody, especially when certain people haven't had real storylines in quite some time. Now, here's where I really got annoyed. When Andy brought up how Kandi and Drew were saying that Shereé's new face resembles Drew's. So Kandi says, let me clarify what I meant, because there was a recent picture of Shereé, and all I said was, in that picture, she looked just like Drew. So here goes Shereé talking about, well, if I were Drew, I'd be insulted because that was one of the worst pictures of me. Now, Shereé, when they put the picture up, you looked really nice in that picture. How hateful are you where you're going to blatantly lie about how you look because you're upset that somebody said that you and Drew look alike? The psychosis is real. Drew is a pretty woman, whether you like her or not. So it shouldn't be an insult to you if somebody says that you guys kind of resembled each other. And again, Shereé, that picture that you were talking about, that was a nice picture of you. Actually, one of your best pictures, if I'm being honest, because a lot of times in pictures, Shereé looks very hard. And she looked all soft and just very soft glam. But I was like, damn, like you really can't stand Drew that much? where you're gonna lie on yourself and say that you looked bad in that picture where you actually looked really good? Like, girl, what are you talking about? Throughout Sheree's segment, it was constant double talking and just stupidity all around. Because when Andy brought up Martel, he read the viewer question asking Shereé, how does she feel about Martel spreading his big dick energy all over Huntsville, Alabama? So here goes Shereé making excuses. She's like, look, the thing about Martel is that when he's with me, we're great. We have a great time. He's respectful. I like him a lot. But there's a whole bunch of noise. And because of that, I had to pull back. Then Shereé goes on to say how everybody's always coming to her with some news about Martel and how it's tiring and how while she likes him, she likes herself a lot more. Now, I said the survey says that's a lie because if you liked yourself more, you would never have gotten with Martel in the first place. A serial cheater who dogged out his ex-wife and then knocked up his mistress and then left her. You think that that's a great guy? So again, miss me with all this BS about how you like him, but you like yourself more, because you don't. The only reason why you finally pulled back from him, because one, you're embarrassed. Two, he's on his show calling you his friend girl, saying that it's not that serious. He's not even claiming you. And now you're embarrassed about all the mess that's going on each week and this crazy love triangle that he's in with his mistress and you and who knows who else. So that's the only reason why you're talking about, oh, well, I pulled back because I can't do it. It's too much mess. Just stop. And also, that's the true sign of a pick-me, in my opinion, because when you hear somebody say, well, he's good to me, he's nice to me, but baby, when the newness wears off, he's gonna dog you out the same way he did his exes. So every time women think that they're the exception to the rule, 9 times out of 10, you're not. You're just new. So for her to keep saying that, well, he's great with me and he likes me and we have a great time together, well, I'm sure he was great to Melody when he first married her, and I'm sure he was good to Ariane, his mistress. But look what he did to both of them. You just sound so dumb at your big age to still be caping for men like this, especially men with a proven track record of poor treatment when it comes to women. And it was so funny to me how Shereé tried to gloss over when Kenya brought up the whole revenge pee that he was trying to do against his ex-wife. And Sheree's talking about, well, you see, I don't know what's true. I don't know what's not true. But yeah, just too much mess. I said, yeah, let's talk about that. You want to be the bone collector and talk about everybody else's issues, but when it comes to your fake man and this fake romance, you want to just gloss over what he's doing back over in Huntsville. So now, of course, the whole topic of Kenya bringing up how Martel slid in her DMs prior to him getting with Shereé. And Kenya says, look, I didn't think that it mattered, but I want to bring it up to give you the heads up. So now Shereé feels away. She feels like Kenya should have told her this information way beforehand. So now they get into it, and Kenya says, I don't want a man who disrespects me. And so you have Shereé talking about, well, you want a man who's dating everybody else in town. And of course, she's referring to Roy. So Kenya's like, look, girl, we're dating. So now Shereé's like, well, me and Martel are doing the same thing. Now let's just stop for a minute, right? Because Kenya made it clear that she and Roy were just dating and it was not a relationship. You, on the other hand, have been trying to play us all season. One minute you and Martel are having fun. The next minute you're alluding to the fact that that's your boyfriend. You guys have been going together for 6 months. So which one is it? And we don't see anything in the blogs about Roy with other women. Whereas every other week, Martel's in the headlines. He's all over the blogs because he's back and forth with his mistress. Then he's with somebody else. So, girl, again, not too much. Shereé's just so happy that she finally has a piece of a man now. So she wants to shade everybody else like Kenya, because she believes that Kenya's still single. But girl, I'll take single any day over what you have going on. Let's be very clear. Now at this point, Andy turns to Kenya and he's asking Kenya about her divorce. He says, please tell me that your divorce is finalized. And Kenya says, I wish I could say that, but it's not. And on top of that, Mark has filed 2 contempt charges against me. The first one is stating that I'm preventing him from seeing his child. Now, I watched a recent interview that Kenya did, And Kenya revealed that this man has not seen his child in 2 years. And we know that Kenya wants Brooklyn to have a relationship with Mark. Kenya is not keeping that man from seeing his child. He's just a deadbeat dad, and he's trying to blame Kenya. This divorce might end up going longer than Bethany Frankel's divorce did. And we know that she was married to Jason for 2 years, and the divorce went on for 7 years. And I'm really praying for Kenya's sake that that's not the case. So now we find out that the second charge against Kenya is the whole incident when they were in Birmingham and Marlo kicked her door. So now Andy turns to Marlo and he's like, Marlo, after hearing this, how do you feel? So now Marlo starts mumbling. She's like, well, I just feel bad that Brooklyn was in the middle of our BS. And Marlo, if I were Kenya, I would have cursed you clean out. Because the fact that you gave the world's weakest apology, her daughter was in that room. Marlo really has a problem. This woman is high-key a psycho. Because I don't understand how you can act like that and then all you can say is, well, I'm sorry that Brooklyn was in the middle of our BS. No, that's unacceptable. And if I'm being honest, we all know how jealous Marlo is of Kenya and how hateful she is. So I wouldn't be surprised if this was Marlo's plan the whole time, to have Kenya's divorce be drawn out even longer because of that incident. Now, Kenya telling Marlo that because of all this, she's been subpoenaed and has to appear in court. And when she gave the subpoena to Andy, we find out that it's blank. Now I say, Kenya, if you're gonna pull out receipts, I'm going to need you to be prepared because the way everybody was laughing at you and the way Andy kind of relished in embarrassing you about the documents being blank, I low-key had secondhand embarrassment. That would have been such a gotcha moment had that subpoena been filled out with Marlo's name and information. And I thought it was shady of Andy when he dismissed her and he said, well, I'm not accepting this as evidence. I was just like, next time, Kenya, please make sure that all your documents are printed out. Now, finding out from Kenya that Marlo's phone number appeared in Mark's phone records 2 years ago, I wasn't surprised to hear that. We all know how low down and how desperate Marlo is. So it didn't surprise me in the least bit. Marlo trying to deny it. I just said, Marlo, stop it. We know how you are. You get this sick, twisted pleasure contacting your so-called friends, boyfriends and husbands and ex-boyfriends, the same way you were sitting up there trying to get with Nene's ex-boyfriend John like a weirdo. We all know that you were on that phone trying to talk to Mark. And the fact that Mark hates Kenya so much, I'm sure that he did answer your phone calls to get dirt on Kenya. Now, here's where I got my life. Here's where I enjoyed Andy's shade. When we went right back to Shereé and Andy brought up the whole birthday dinner fiasco with Martel asking the women to Cashapp him for Shereé's birthday dinner at Nobu.
Ladies, may we get a word?
Hide the money, y'all. There's poor people around. With your broke ass.
So Shereé says, look, it was my birthday dinner. Martel was an invited guest. And Andy interrupts her and he says, okay, so it's your birthday dinner. So that means that you were going to pay for everybody, right? So Shereé's like, excuse me? Like what? Why would I do that? It's my birthday. Now, let's just stop right now and let's have a quick refresher when it comes to etiquette and birthday dinners. Shereé, or somebody in the upper crust, as you claim, the wealthy elite, you're a so-called rich woman, correct? And if you claim to have manners, if you claim to have class, then you would know that etiquette books state that when you're hosting a birthday dinner, you pay for everybody's meal. Again, it was very tacky that Martel did not cover that bill, especially since he claims that he's got money and he's balling. $1,200 should have been a drop in the bucket. And you sounded just as crazy and just as cheap as you've always sounded. The way Andy had Shereé speechless when he said, Shereé, you have a very interesting relationship when it comes to paying bills.
You know what? This is too much.
So here goes Shereé all defensive. She's talking about, listen, throughout all these years, nobody has ever taken me to court or sued me about bills. Then she tries to shade Kandi about when her former assistant sued her. Remember that guy, Johnny, who sued Kandi? I think it was, season 8 or season 9? And he hired Phaedra as his lawyer? She was referring to that. Now I said, Shereé, the fact that you can sit there and lie with such a straight face is alarming. Because, Shereé, what we won't do is rewrite history. Baby, we can pull up the receipts right now and go over all the times where you were sued by contractors and landscapers about not paying them. Do you think that we forgot about how your Aston Martin in season 3 got repossessed? I'm going to always be curious as to how somebody can believe their own lies. I was too done when she really said out of her mouth, "I've never been sued or taken to court about not paying people." Girl, what? Your whole entire existence on this show, you've been the butt of the jokes because you don't pay people. Now, one thing about Miss Kandi, don't talk about her mama, her man, or her money. Because she was so pissed when Shereé brought that whole Johnny situation up. So Candy's like, you know good and damn well, I did not steal that idea. That idea for OLG came from my mom and my aunts. So now Kandi really gets petty, and I was here for it. Kandi said, now let's talk about how you didn't pay that designer last year, and that's why all that stuff that we saw on the runway is not on your website. So now you have Shereé talk about, why are you so interested? Why are you so pressed in what I have going on? I said, Shereé, I just don't understand. How do you think that you can shade Kandi? Then when she claps back, now you're upset. Talk about why are you so pressed? Nobody's pressed about She by Shereé. We're just calling you out and calling the BS out. That's it. I was so glad that Kandi had you up against the ropes each and every time during this segment. She was not playing.
Oh my God. And you're going to always get it again and again and again.
So now Sheree and Candy go at it. They're screaming at each other. Sheree's talking about, go mop those nasty ass floors at your restaurants. I just said, Shereé, say what you want, but she has 3 restaurants. And what do you have? If this show goes off the air tomorrow, if you should get fired tomorrow, where will you be? Meanwhile, Kandi will be just fine. Now, when Kandi started insulting Sheree's face, she was like, girl, worry about all those shots in your face. You talking about shots, not squats, because all the shots are in your damn face. You have Shereé standing up, showcasing her body. She's like, and look at me, you could never. Now, I just said, Shereé, why are you acting like Kandi's not pretty too? You sound really dumb. Like, I was just like, okay, and? So for you to say, well, you don't compare to me, and look at me, look at you, I'm just kind of like, okay, but Kandi has a pretty face too, so what you're saying doesn't make any sense. Like, it's not landing. And also, Shereé, I've always felt like, Shereé, you're pretty, but Shereé has a very hard look to her. And that's no shade, but I know I'm not the only one. There's not a softness to Shereé. She has always had a very hard face, a very hard exterior. There's a hardness to her beauty, similar to Evelyn Lozada and a few other women where it's like, okay, they're pretty, but they're also hard. You get what I'm saying? So say what you want, but there's a softness to Kandi, whereas I don't see that softness in you. So you talk about, oh, well, you don't compare to me, you could never. I'm like, but Kandi has a cute figure as well. I mean, I don't know, Shereé. Again, it wasn't landing. I could see if Kandi didn't look good, but it just doesn't land when the person also looks good as well. Just my opinion. Kandi was not playing. When she called Shereé a no good, nothing ass bitch, I said, girl, I'm not even mad at you. Because the way Shereé is trying to sit up here and dog you out like this is disgusting and shameful. And it shows you that Shereé was never your friend. Shereé, you just sounded even crazier talking about worry about your businesses. Kandi said, I do. And then you said, well, worry about the shootings. Girl, there was only one shooting and everything is fine now. Let's worry about your failed business that you still can't seem to get right. Shereé pulling out that 9-page pamphlet that she printed out herself called She News, and the whole entire news article was dogging out Kandi. And I just said, so you had the time to do this, but you don't have the time to get She by Shereé off the ground. You don't have time to get the She by Shereé website up and running. It's still a mess. People still can't buy their things. But you had time to do this. That was just so evil. She posted every bad review and every complaint about Kandi's restaurants. I said, again, sis, if somebody made a pamphlet about all the times you've been sued for non-payment, about the foreclosures, about the repossessions, how would you like it? Because I would have been petty and I would have done that. Then Shereé trying to read Kandi about her clothing store tags. And Kandi said, listen, I have never pretended like I was selling high-end clothing. But say what you want, my store's been up and running for 14 years, but you can't say the same. Now, the way my petty set up, I'm very much, when you go low, I'm going to hell. Because if I were Kandi, I would have brought up the fact that once upon a time, from 2004 to 2007, Shereé had a clothing store of her own. And it went under. But there's no way you're reading me when you have a failed business under your belt and a clothing line that has yet to get off the ground. So now Andy wants to know if they all got their She by Shereé merchandise when they ordered in Portugal, and they all say yes. So now, of course, Shereé has to make this big scene, and she brings out a She by Shereé bag for Drew. She's like, since Drew keeps saying how she never got a bag, well, here it is. So Drew's like, oh my gosh, like, thank you. So now Shereé walks over to Kandi with the bag, and she's like, but first, I want Kandi to open it up. Now, after the blow-up fight that we just had, there is no way that Shereé would be able to stand over me in any capacity. You just try to insult me and read me down, stay over there. Don't look at me, don't touch me, like, just leave me alone. But Kandi opens up the bag, and it's a clapperboard that says, and scene. So Kandi rolls her eyes, and when I tell you, Kandi was not here for it. She was like, who helped you with your reads this year? Like, let me know. We know that Shereé's not too bright. She's not that witty. She's not that quick on her feet. So it's clear that somebody had to help her write her reads for this year's reunion. So now we change gears, and now it's all about Drew. So Andy's asking Drew, how did she feel working with Kandi and Todd? So Drew says that doing the movie with Kandi and Todd was actually a lot of fun. It was better than she thought. She says that the food was great, the trailer was great, the director was great, everything was great. It was top tier. So now Andy addresses Drew's comments when she said that from now on, she's only doing Lifetime or above. So he wants to know, how did Kandi feel when she heard her saying that? So Kandi's like, when I heard that, I just said, okay, child, I guess, good luck. So Drew defends herself by saying that when she was offered this role, the pay was a lot lower than what she's usually used to getting. Her agent actually turned down the role, and then Todd called her, and they talked it out, and she did it for the bigger purpose. But Drew let it be known that she was pretty much doing Kandi and Todd a favor, because any other day, her fee is a lot higher. Now, Drew, while that's understandable, I feel like when you accept a job from somebody, you can't complain about how it's beneath you and how the pay is too low. You didn't have to accept it. Also, Drew, let's not act like everybody's beating down your door offering you roles. And Sheree and Marlo are so evil because they were talking amongst themselves, and you hear Sheree saying, well, I heard that Drew only got paid $10,000 for all that work. Like, girl, shut up. And I loved when Kandi checked you and said she got paid way more than $10,000. And Sheree, like I said, the only check that you have coming in is from Bravo. And you wish that you could get some other checks from other streams of income. So not too much. I'm sure if Kandi offered you a role tomorrow for 10 or 20,000, you would take it with bells on. The way I never want to hear anything more about this kiss between Drew and LaToya in South Carolina, I'm exhausted. Drew is not going to admit it ever. So why we're still going around in circles about this? Again, let this be the last time we ever have an argument or a conversation about Drew and LaToya because I am tired. So of course, Andy brings up Drew's comment about how Kandi's trying to hype up this kiss that didn't happen because she wants to promote her movie. Now, Drew, the way you sounded like a true idiot saying that, because like Kandi said, the movie came out 3 years after this kiss between you and LaToya even happened. So you make no sense. So anyhow, Drew and Kandi get into it during this segment. Kandi's like, I was really upset because the fact that Drew keeps calling me a liar. I know what I saw. Andy goes on to ask Kandi if there's any way that she saw it wrong. And Kandi says, I know what I saw. I didn't make this up. I'm not seeing things. They were kissing. Sonya trying to jump in. I swear to you, there were several times that I forgot that Sonya was even there. Sonya does not give me any star quality whatsoever. Sonya is very forgettable. Everybody's just not cut out for reality TV. And it is what it is. But the fact that I forgot that she was there, that right there says it all. But Sonya goes on to say that the only person in this situation who keeps changing their story is LaToya. So now Drew jumps in. She keeps calling Kandi a liar. Then she's like, Kandi coded lies. So now Kandi's yelling back at her. And now you have Drew talking about how everybody's afraid of Queen Kandi because she has the most followers out of everybody in the group. At this point, Kandi says yet again that she saw Drew and LaToya kissing, as well as Kenya and Marlo. So now Marlo's like, well, I only saw 80%. And I was like, Marlo, can you just be honest for 1 second of your life? Please. Did you see them kiss or not? So Marlo's like, well, I saw them get in their faces really close. She does a demonstration. And I just said, Marlo, if you saw them kiss, just say it. I don't know why you have to sit up here and now change your story. Kandi says to Drew, the way you sat up here and lied, I believe that you're the one gaslighting Ralph. Now, Kandi, we know that Drew lies. We're aware that Drew is not being honest about this kiss. She obviously does not feel comfortable telling her truth. To say that you believe that Drew is the one gaslighting Ralph, let's not do that. We've watched Drew and Ralph's interactions. It is abundantly clear that he gaslights the hell out of her, and he has her walking on eggshells, and she's tiptoeing around him to make sure that she doesn't anger him. And Kandi, I need you to own up to your wrongdoing when you had Courtney on your Speak On It, because that made no sense. And then for you to take the video down and then re-edit it because you didn't want to be called out for the comments that you guys both made about Allison's mental health, completely disgusting and irresponsible. And you should know better. Drew, you're also delusional because at the end of this argument that you had with Kandi, you're sitting there saying, well, I just want to make sure that me and Kandi are good. They were all like, sis, are you serious right now? Even Andy was like, Drew, is everything all right at home? Because on what planet do you believe that you and Kandi are good? Like, you guys are far from good. Now, Andy asking Drew if she plans on telling the truth when Ralph comes out later on in the reunion. And Drew says that she's unsure because they're still married and she believes in the sanctity of marriage and they have kids. So she's unsure of what she wants to discuss. Now, when Sonya and Kenya interrupted to state that they have some hope that Drew and Ralph are going to reconcile, I said, this is the brainwashing, especially in the Black community, that we need to discuss. because the worshiping of men, especially the worshiping of black men, has got to stop. This man has been an awful husband for years. He has disrespected her time and time again. And for you guys to even sit up there and suggest that they reconcile and work it out, there's nothing to work out. And it really bothers me that women, especially at their ages, have this mentality of sticking it out with the man and not breaking up the family and, riding with your man despite the good or the bad. And the bad is mostly neglect, abuse, or cheating. It's like, what the F is going on? Do you guys hear yourselves right now? Do you guys want a man that bad that despite all the cheating and disrespect, you still want to be with them? Like, you need to listen to yourself. It's very aggravating that a lot of these women just want a man so badly. It's a very sad and toxic and desperate mindset to have. And hearing them say that, I was just like, can y'all shut up? Drew is doing the right thing by divorcing this man. He does not like her. He does not value her. It's constant gaslighting. He hates her guts. Like, just stop. Marlo casually dropping that piece of information about how Ralph reached out to her and they spoke, and she told him that she could see them reconciling and getting back together. And Drew's face was like, excuse me? What do you mean you're sitting up there talking to my husband on the phone? But again, that's how Marlo operates. Marlo's a weirdo, so she's always going to be chasing behind somebody else's man. Now, they take a short break, and at this point, we see Monyetta and Courtney come out. Courtney was grinning from ear to ear. She was like, this is my moment. Let me show up and show out so that I can be asked back in some capacity for season 16. And bravo, I know that you guys watch me. Hey, please do us all a favor. Do not have Courtney back.
No.
You know how I feel about Marlo? I'm going to breeze past her segment so fast. I'm going to give it 2 minutes because I don't like Marlo and I don't care. Andy's asking her about Scott Lee. She says that her and Scott Lee are still dating, still having fun. She hasn't met his kids. He hasn't met her nephews, but things are still good. Now, am I buying this relationship? No, but whatever. Andy goes on to ask Marlo if her and Scott Lee have finally consummated their relationship or whatever they're doing. She says that yes, they have had sex, despite her not being a big bedroom person. Personally, Marlo has always struck me as asexual, so I think that's the reason why I really can't see her in a romantic situation, if that makes sense. Like, I don't know. I just feel like when it comes to Marlo, she gives very much, there are no emotions. She's just all about the material items. That's just what I get from her. I don't really see her having that connection with anybody. But anyhow, she goes on to say that Courtney's still helping her get her record expunged, and she even has Phaedra helping her. I said, girl, you are just so desperate. Like, you really live to get under Candy's skin. And the way Phaedra has yet to win a case, good luck in her getting your record expunged. But I said, okay, girl, I guess. So now we talk about the whole Marlo and Roy first date situation and all that drama. Kenya says, look, Roy barely even remembered it. They went out for a lunch. She says that wasn't really a date if they had to drive their own cars to Taco Bell. And we know that Marlo's dates consist of her getting money on the dresser. Now look, Kenya, I know you can't stand Marlo. I get it. I can't stand her either. But if they went out on a date years ago, who cares? I wouldn't even give Marlo the satisfaction of seeing you bothered by it. I'd be like, okay, it was years ago. It was way before me. It was one date. Nothing happened. I don't care. I wouldn't even be sitting up here insulting Marlo because Marlo's not worth it. And it gave that you were a bit bothered by it. And Andy even clocked it. He said, but it does bother you a bit that Roy and Marlo did go out on that one date. And I was just like, again, Kenya, don't ever let anybody, especially Marlo, see you sweat like that. Now, when the whole topic got brought up about why wasn't Roy filmed this season with Kenya, and Kenya said, well, it was because when the trailer came out, he heard Marlo make some really nasty remark about how he popped her cherry and he was disgusted. And because he's a businessman, he doesn't want to be associated with that kind of talk. So Andy points out how the trailer went out after they were done with filming. Why wasn't he around when they were filming? So she keeps making up an excuse, and I just said, look, Kenya, if he didn't want to be filmed, then just say that. But you're not doing yourself any favors by making these weak excuses that don't make sense. And the fact that we saw Scott Lee more than we saw Roy this whole season, I'm just saying, Kenya, it's not the best look. So I said, if I were you, I would have just said, look, he didn't want to be filmed. That's it, and that's all. Marlo rating everybody's reunion looks. Girl, your dress wasn't giving. But Marlo goes on to say that Monyetta's giving Sunday's best. She liked Kandi's look. She somewhat liked Kenya's look. She liked Kenya's boobs out, but she didn't like all the feathers. And she thought that Kenya should have had her hair down. So Kenya claps back and says she wants to rate all of us. Meanwhile, she looks like Mrs. Roper off of Three's Company. I'm not going to hold you guys. I was over the whole collusion conversation when Andy was asking Monyetta why she felt that Sonya, Marlo, Courtney, and Shereé were in a collusion. I didn't care. I just felt like we all know that they have an alliance. They are against Kandi and Kenya. So we don't need to state the obvious. It is what it is. But Sonya trying to jump in, defending herself, saying that they weren't just sitting up there talking about them. They were only trying to find out who was telling the truth when it came to Kandi and Drew. Now we have Courtney jumping in to defend herself and the whole bitch comment. She says that Monyetta was the one confused. So now Andy brings up when Courtney called Kandi ghetto when she was talking to Shereé and Sonya. Kandi says that it didn't feel good watching that back, especially seeing her good friend Sonya laughing. And now Sonya says, now hold on, Kandi, because you set the precedence for our friendship. Because last year, when Drew flipped her hair in my face at the reunion, and she went around posting the video about it on social media, you texted me saying that, well, I'm sorry, Sonya, but it is low-key funny. So the same way you thought that it was funny about me being disrespected, then you can't be mad if I laugh about what Courtney said about you. And I said, you know what, Sonya? While I don't see it for you most of the time, you're right. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. Kandi, you can't have it both ways. If you want loyalty and respect, you have to also give it as well. You can't sit up there and laugh at somebody when they're being shaded, but now when somebody shades you, now you want to cry and talk about, well, if you're my friend, you need to call out and defend me. And it's like, no, it doesn't work that way. If you want that loyalty, you need to give it back. So I just said, you know what, Kandi? Sonya has a point. And that's one thing that I've noticed about Kandi, which I don't like. Kandi wants all this empathy, but she's even admitted that she's not an empathetic person. Now, when Andy brought up the whole mess in Birmingham, when Marlo slammed the door in Monyetta's face, and Shereé was sitting up there trying to gaslight Monyetta, talking about, well, I didn't like the fact that you called me a hyena. Like, that was just really uncalled for. And I said, but girl, you're sitting up there cackling and laughing and excusing the fact that your friend showed her entire ass in this hotel and then had the audacity to slam a door in somebody's face. So that's okay. But you want an apology because somebody called you a hyena? I was just too irritated. And I was so glad when Monyetta said, every time Marlo does something, you always make an excuse for it. So now Andy brings up, why was it okay for Monyetta to film in Portugal, but it wasn't okay for Marlo to record the whole argument between Drew and Kandi? So Monyetta says, well, the reason why, because I didn't send it to anybody, and Marlo sent it to somebody outside of the group. Like, LaToya's not here, she's not filming, so why even bring her into this? Marlo's excuse for why she sent the video to LaToya, because she says that LaToya is the only one who would tell the truth. The way LaToya's story keeps changing, I think that she's also full of it as well. So again, it was a waste of time sending her anything. And I'm just so over this whole kiss story anyway. Clearly, LaToya and Drew made a pact to keep their mouths shut and not say anything. So what's the point about dragging this out? I'm tired. In the second part, I don't want to hear anything more about this phantom kiss that took place in South Carolina between Drew and LaToya. Now we close out this first part with Andy asking Courtney about the rumors that she was spreading about the divorce. So Courtney says that Ralph told her all this stuff because Ralph is very upset. So Drew jumps in and she says, let's get one thing straight. Courtney doesn't know anything about me or Ralph. She knows nothing about our marriage. And let's be very clear, Ralph has been coaching Courtney all season long. Now, I believe that 110% is very clear that Courtney and Ralph are in cahoots with each other, and they're both trying to take Drew down. Also, I wouldn't be surprised if Courtney and Ralph are actually messing around behind Drew's back, because the way Courtney is so overly invested in what's going on with Drew and Ralph is weird. And she seems very protective over Ralph. It's giving a secret lover who feels scorned, and she wants Drew out the picture. I don't get family vibes. And when Andy asked Courtney earlier on in the reunion how they were actually related, and she said, my dad's sister is married to Ralph's grandma's uncle or something like that, and they were all like, girl, what? I don't believe for 1 minute that they are blood related. This sounds like my 10th cousin twice removed on my dad's side. That's what it sounds like. But Courtney, you admitted on Candy Speak On It that you guys aren't related. You guys are play cousins. And now Drew checks Courtney and she says, and one other thing, don't you ever in your life bring up my son and the adoption process ever again. And when Courtney was taunting her saying, oh, and what? And what are you gonna do? It's just like, this woman is evil, and it makes sense that she's friends with Sheree and Marlo. And the fact that Courtney showed no remorse for talking about Drew's son says a lot. Because any person with any sort of decency would have said, you know what, Drew? I was really effed up for that. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. It won't happen again. That was out of line. And when she lied talking about she wasn't talking about Drew's son, and even Andy turned around and checked her and said, no, you were talking about her son. Because Andy was disgusted at how low you could go just for some TV time. So we ended with Courtney and Drew going back and forth. Courtney admits that she knew that the cameras were rolling the whole time. And I checked her last week. I said it was just so fake, her pretending like she had no idea the cameras were still rolling when she made that nasty comment about Drew's son. It was obvious she wanted a soundbite. She wanted attention. She wasn't fooling anybody. And now Drew says, like I said, don't you ever speak on my son again. And then Drew says, and girl, you're not a real cousin. You're unverifiable, bitch. And that's where we end the first part. Like I said, this first part was actually entertaining. I think that it's a sad day when the reunion gives way more than an entire season. But guys, that was my recap. I hope you all enjoyed. Thank you all so much for watching, and you already know what to do. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you all later. Bye.